this is going to be a little bit of a different video. So harking back to one I did sort of towards the start of my channel, which isn't that old anyway. But I watch a lot of other YouTubers, particularly beauty type YouTubers, and a little while back Samantha Chapman from Pixiwoo made a video about her anxiety and how it affects her, and that was followed by Dustin Hunter doing one as well, both of which really touched me, really spoke to me. And I also subscribe to Graveyard Girl, and she has anxiety issues as well. And recently I came across another lovely person who known on YouTube as Lipstick and Lithium, and she has bipolar disorder, and she talks about that on her channel, and it's quite a new channel, but it's quite interesting. And it kind of made me think about my own situation and talking about it and thinking, you know, maybe I could share this with people and they might get something out of it. I know not a lot of people watch my channel, but you never know. It might help one person. So I suffer from a range of different disorders. First and foremost, I have post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD, and that's combined with depression and anxiety, which is, they play into each other. Plus I get insomnia, so they feed off each other and they play into each other. So if I'm having a bad PTSD day, that will usually mean that I don't sleep properly, and then I will get quite a bit of anxiety, and usually after anxiety I plunge into depression, usually because I'm completely exhausted and have no reserves left. And then, you know, if I'm not having a bad PTSD day, I might be having a bad depression day, which again will feed into all of the other things, and they kind of bounce off each other, and it's kind of a bit of a vicious cycle. And I've been in counselling for a long time, basically. Things got really bad for me just over 3 years ago when my best friend died. And I still really haven't come to terms with that. It's the hardest thing that I think I've had to deal with. Some people would say what I went through as a child, but for me, losing her was horrendous, and I haven't fully recovered from that. But my post-traumatic stress disorder indicates that there has to have been some trauma at some point in time, and for me it was that I was sexually abused as a child, and it changes you. And the strange thing about post-traumatic stress disorder is that it doesn't always present straight away. Sometimes it seems the further you are away from it, the worse you become, which is kind of what happened for me. I was in and out of counselling most of my sort of young life. I lived with my abuser from the time I was 6 until I was 14. And I was one of those kids, I really loved school, and that was because school was more fun than being at home. And it's a really hard thing to go through. Not exactly easy to talk about either. At the time, not long after I wasn't living with him anymore, he was actually my stepfather, which means my mother was married to him. Within sort of like a year or so of them breaking up, stuff came out, and at that time I couldn't press charges. I just wasn't mentally in a place to do so. I mean, I was 15 years old, dealing with all the stuff that 15-year-olds deal with, and feeling quite terrible. I kind of struggled through for a few more years, and when I was 18 I was living on my own in the city, or living in a flat with another person in the city. Might as well have been alone. And I had a massive breakdown, contemplated suicide quite seriously, didn't follow through, although I'd had a few kind of tries beforehand. This one was a very scary one, and that was when I first started to get some decent counselling, and you know, things seemed to get better for a while, and then I had a family, and that didn't work out so well. It turned out I'd had a bit of postnatal depression that sort of came from when I had my first kids and didn't get picked up until I had my fourth. And I got some really good counselling back then, and in about 2004 I decided to press charges against my abuser, and it was hard, and unfortunately things didn't go my way. My case got kind of lost in a pile of paperwork. My case got lost in a pile of paperwork, and it was quite a number of years before anything happened with it, which was when one of my abuser's daughters, actual daughters, filed charges. And it sort of took a while until not long after my friend died, actually. And she was going to testify in this case because she knew what had happened. And they came to the decision that they couldn't proceed with the case, even though they had more than enough evidence. They weren't sure they could convict, except for the fact that he was sick, and they didn't think it would be fair on him to be taken to trial in his condition. And it has been an extraordinarily bitter pill to swallow that he got fair and I didn't. I have a problem with people who say that things aren't fair, because until you've gone through something like that, it's hard to really understand that there's no such thing as fair. But after the case was closed, he was never found innocent, but he was certainly never found guilty. And, you know, they kind of say to you, you should take solace from the fact that now it's out there in the public. I'm sorry, I don't take solace from that, because afterwards I found out things that made it harder to just accept. I found out that before I was even involved in the life of my abuser, that he had admitted being inappropriate with his children, with his daughters. He was sent for some psychiatric counselling, and then that was it. No one checked on him. No one said anything. No one said anything to my mother. If my mum had known what she was getting herself involved with, she never would have. And I mean, he wasn't only abusive to me, he was abusive to my brothers, he was abusive to my mum. He was abusive to what friends dared to come to our house. Haven't got a lot of friends from my childhood because not too many people wanted to hang out except for my best friend. Yeah, so I found out that they had known what he was like, and no one protected me. I really did fall through the cracks. And it's been kind of a long, hard struggle to get back from there. And, you know, I'm starting to get better. I'm starting to get a handle on it. I have more bad days than good, unfortunately, but, you know, I'm trying. That's part of my reason for starting this YouTube channel, was to try and engage in a way that I could engage. And I think it's really important for us that, for people who are prepared to speak out, to actually do so, because there are so many people who don't have the courage to speak out, or that they feel like they're alone in their situation, and they're really not. There are a lot of us out there. And I know from experience how hard it can be just to get out of bed in the morning, to get dressed, the little achievements, and and how anxiety is exhausting and makes life more complicated than it needs to be, really. And that having disorders like post-traumatic stress make life a challenge. Strange things are triggers and set you off, and it can be a word or a smell or anything. And flashbacks, which I have to say are the worst. It'd be nice if the flashbacks were about something that was nice, that was fun, but they never are. You don't remember the good stuff as much as you remember the painful stuff. So, yeah, I don't know whether this has helped anybody or whether it's made any difference, but I just want anybody who's out there who is going through anything to know that you really are not alone. There are lots of people out there who care, who give a shit about you. You just have to reach out occasionally, and I know that's really scary because you don't want to be rejected, you don't want to be pushed aside, but it's worth it because there are people who care and who will be there and who will understand. So, yeah. Till next time. See ya.